I hate to break it to you, but cardio sucks for fat loss. Now I know what you're thinking. What is the easiest cardio routine you should be doing to get lean? But the truth is, cardio doesn't burn as many calories as you think. Walking on the Stairmaster for 30 minutes burns about 300 calories. Guess how long it takes you to eat those 300 calories? Just 5 minutes. One cookie is also 300 calories. If all you do cardio for is the calorie burn, you are massively missing out, because you could actually hit your calorie goals much better by calories you consume, not calories you burn. You see, cardio, what happens when you do too much of it, it's gonna end up increasing your hunger. And so the more and more you do of it, the more and more hungry that you get. And so oftentimes the people who only focus on cardio to lose weight or to lose body fat end up consuming more calories through their diet. Plus, your body adapts quickly, making cardio less effective over time. So that's why long distance runners, in order to get the same effect, they have to run longer, farther, and faster than they did previously. Here's what's interesting though. This is the exact opposite effect that lifting weights has. So when you lift weights and you get better and you get stronger, the more weights you lift, the more calories you end up burning because you gain more muscle mass. But the more cardio you do and your body adapts and you build up more endurance, the longer and farther you have to run. This is also why when you do cardio, you hit plateaus a lot easier. Because before you could go on a 30-minute run and you were losing weight easily, but now you go on that same 30-minute run and you've noticed that it's easier on your body, so you end up burning less calories. Here's another thing with excessive cardio. When you do excessive cardio, let's say that's all you do for your exercise, excessive cardio can lead to muscle loss. One of the things to influence fat loss the best is to build muscle so that your metabolism can go up. If you do only cardio and you're eating low calories, your body's going to tap into your muscle to use it for energy. And so what happens now, because I'm doing a ton of cardio and I'm losing muscle mass, my metabolism slows down, meaning I burn less calories over time, and this oftentimes is gonna lead to overeating, negating calories you actually burned. So for a lot of people, they do a ton of cardio. They're running, they're sprinting, they're doing HIIT cardio, but because they do so much cardio, they end up eating more. When you're in a calorie deficit, your body may break down muscle for energy. So one of the keys when you're in a calorie deficit is giving your body the right amount of fuel and energy so that you can lift heavy and have enough energy during your workouts. So what happens over time is if you put yourself in too big of a calorie deficit, you end up slowing your metabolism down, making fat loss even harder. Now, the form of cardio that I'm cautious with is HIIT cardio. So HIIT cardio is high intensity interval training. So this is when you will do high intensity intervals for, let's say, 1 minute, or you do a HIIT class for 60 minutes. Now, HIIT can be effective when done correctly and with the right amount of weightlifting as well as low intensity cardio. But when all you do is HIIT cardio, it can actually hurt you more than it can help you. Now, the thing with HIIT is you may burn more calories in the short term, but in the long term, it might mess with your appetite. So one of the things that happens when you're doing a ton of HIIT cardio is it actually increases your cortisol levels and your cravings. So when your cortisol goes up, you have less self-control and you have more cravings that kick in over time. So even though you burn more calories, yes, absolutely, doing HIIT cardio, it negates the calories you burn because a lot of the times people end up eating more calories than they burned. So does this mean you should never do HIIT cardio? No, I'm not saying that at all, but I do think you should be very cautious of it and make sure it fits properly into your regular routine of lifting weights, doing your steps in your calorie deficit. Now, the amount of HIIT cardio you should do really depends on the person, but I think doing anywhere from 1 to 2 HIIT cardio sessions max per week should be your target. So here's what you should do instead. First off, you need to understand that you can't out-cardio a bad diet. Now, cardio isn't as effective for fat loss when your nutrition isn't tapped in. And so the first thing I need to do is figure out how quickly I should be losing weight. Now, the ideal weight loss should be anywhere from 0.5 to 1% of your total body weight per week. Now, what this means is if you weigh 200 pounds, that means you should be losing about anywhere from 1 to 2 pounds per week on average. So in order to do that, I have to create what's called a calorie deficit of about 20% below my maintenance calories. So let's say my maintenance calories are 2,000 calories, and all that means is if I eat 2,000 calories every single day, then I'm going to maintain my weight. If that's the case, then I create a calorie deficit of 20% beneath that, which would equal about 1,600 calories. And I eat that way until I notice that I'm losing about 0.5 to 1% of my overall body weight per week. Now you might be asking yourself, well, how do I find my maintenance calories? There's a bunch of different ways you could do to find your maintenance calories. One of the easiest ways is just going online and finding maintenance calorie calculators, or there's ways you could do it to customize it for yourself. The fast method to find your maintenance calories is to take your current body weight and multiply it by 14 to 18. Now, if you are more active, then I want you to choose the number that's closer to 18. If you are less active, choose a number that's closer to 14, like 15. And so you'll multiply that. That's going to give you your maintenance calories, and then you're going to eat 20% below that. Now, the slow method, that's the easy way to do it. The slow way to do it is the guess and check method, which is actually going to be more accurate. So what you're going to do with the guess and check method is you're actually going to track your body weight and your calories you consume for 2 whole weeks, calculate the averages based off of that. So you're going to determine the average weight that you gained or lost for those 2 weeks. So let's say, for example, you calculated and you ate all of your calories for 2 weeks and you tracked it, and then you weighed in every single day, all 14 days for the 2 weeks. On average, your weight did not change. Then what that tells you is you are currently eating around your maintenance calories. Let's say you lost 2 pounds in those 2 weeks, and that's about 0.5 to 1% of your total body weight per week on average. That's going to tell you that you are already in a calorie deficit. Now, maybe you gained some weight during that 2 weeks on average. That's going to tell you you are in a calorie surplus. And then you will adjust your calories accordingly based off of those 2 weeks that you tracked. Now, a lot of people are like, I don't want to track my calories. It's too much work. It's too much effort. First off, it's not. It's actually a lot easier than you think. Tracking your calories and learning how to track your food is a skill, just like anything else in life. But let's say you don't want to track calories. You're like, there's no way I'm tracking my calories. I just don't have time for it. I can't do it. Well, here's what you do instead. Then you need to track your body weights. So as long as I am losing the 0.5 to 1% of my overall body weight per week, then I know I'm eating in a good calorie deficit. If I am not losing that amount per week on average, then I know I'm not eating in my calorie deficit. So I hit my calories, I focus on that primarily over cardio if my goal is losing weight. But now, what type of cardio should you be doing? I'm about to break down my exact cardio routine I'm doing right now to get lean. So right now, my goal is to lose some body fat and to tighten up my midsection and my abs. And so here's exactly what I'm doing. What I used to do is I used to believe the best form of cardio was HIIT cardio. And so I would work out, I would do my HIIT cardio right after my workout, and I was like, awesome, I'm gonna lose a ton of weight. But what I didn't understand that all of the extra cardio I was doing was causing me to have this mindset of like, oh, I can go reward myself with food after this super hard workout. And it doesn't work that way, because I was working so hard in the gym, but then I was rewarding myself with cookies and pizza and pasta and burgers after the workout. And then months later, I was wondering why I wasn't seeing the results I wanted, because I was trying to eat back the calories that I burned. The reward for the hard work you put in the gym isn't the calories or the food you get to eat later. Your reward for the work you're putting in the gym is the body you get to see 3 months down the road. That's the true reward. Now, in order to keep your cortisol levels down and your hunger at bay, here's how I like to set up my cardio and how to prioritize things. The first thing I do is I like to prioritize my steps. So hitting daily step goals is the #1 focus you should have for your cardio. So I'm talking about walking anywhere from 10,000 to 12,000 steps per day. High step count population, so people who walk 10,000 steps per day or more, have a 62% lower risk of all causes of death compared to low step count people who walk 2,000 steps a day. The average American only walks about 3,000 to 4,000 steps per day, and only 8% of Americans walk 10,000 steps per day. So you probably think, oh, you're walking 10,000 steps a day, it's not that big of a deal, but only 8% people in America do this. So you're putting yourself in the top 10% of people in the US if you're able to walk 10,000 steps per day. Now, you don't have to do 10,000 steps per day. If that sounds overwhelming to you and you're like, this is way too much, I can't do it, I want you to shoot for 7,000 steps per day. That's still gonna do some work on your body, minimum, and you will see results. Now, if that's even too much, or like 7,000 steps a day, I only walk 3,000 steps a day, I work inside, I'm just sitting on a desk, what do? Here's what you do. You start at whatever steps you have right now, and you slowly work your way up and added 1,000 steps per week. So if you're doing 3,000 steps per day, next week I want you to aim for 4,000. You do that for 7 days in a row, and then the week after that, you're gonna move up to 5,000. You do that every single day for 7 days, and then you move up to 6,000. This is gonna help you set small targets and small goals and give you that confidence that you can actually do this. Because sometimes when you try to go from 3,000 steps a day to 10,000 steps a day, it can feel daunting. It can feel overwhelming, and you could feel defeated. So in order to not do that, just increase your steps by 1,000 each week until you get to your desired goal. I don't care how you do them. I don't care if you're doing the cha-cha in your living room. I don't care if you're walking around your kitchen in circles. The thing with doing steps is you don't have to sweat. You also don't have to get your heart rate up. Getting 10,000 steps a day is a fat loss and health cheat code, and it could be a game changer for you, hands down. Now here's exactly how to get 10,000 steps in a day. My favorite way to get 10,000 steps in a day is to split up my walks. So I'm not a big fan of like going on a 30-minute walk or a 45-minute walk. I would prefer you to, let's say you walk 10 minutes here. You walk 10 minutes there. You do a 10-minute walk in the morning. You do a 10-minute walk at lunch. You do a 10-minute walk in the afternoon. And then you do a 10-minute walk post-dinner. Doing post-meal walks is not only good to help hit your step goals, but it's also good for your digestion and hunger. And so every time you eat, if you could make it a goal of yours to do a 5 to 10-minute walk after you eat, it's not only gonna help you hit your steps, but it's also gonna help with your digestion. So the first thing I focus on is I focus on hitting my step goals. The second thing I focus on is I focus on implementing zone 2 cardio into my regular routine. So my goal every single week is I try to do 2 to 3 zone 2 cardio sessions per week. Now, in order to do zone 2 cardio, typically I'm doing like incline treadmill after my workout. And the reason why zone 2 is so crucial for not only fat loss, but also your heart health is because it improves what's called your stroke volume. So stroke volume is the amount of blood pumped by your heart. And so if you can do more zone 2 cardio, your heart gets stronger, just like any other muscle, because your heart is a muscle. And so what happens is over time, your heart is able to pump more blood with just one contraction. And so your heart rate actually drops because you're doing this zone 2 cardio. The stronger your heart gets, the longer you live and the better quality of life that you have. The other thing that zone 2 is good for is zone 2 is good for improving your insulin sensitivity. And so your body's gonna be able to have better insulin, process carbs and sugar better. It also lowers stress levels, so it's going to lower your cortisol, and it's better for recovery. So implementing zone 2 cardio on top of your 10 to 12,000 steps in a day is going to be huge for your overall health and your overall fat loss. So what I like to do in order to implement zone 2 is typically I will walk on an incline treadmill at 10 to 12 incline for about 2.5 to 3 miles an hour, and I'll do that for like 20 to 30 minutes. So in order to get to your actual zone 2, what you have to do is you have to have your heart rate at 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. Now how do you find that? You're going to take 220 and subtract your current age. So let's say you're 50 years old. So you're going to do 220 minus 50 and take 60 to 70% of that. That is going to be your zone 2. So whatever cardio that you need to do in order to get into that 60 to 70% is where you're going to find your zone 2 cardio range. Now, another way to figure out if you're in zone 2 cardio is you're doing enough cardio where, you're breathing heavily, but you can still hold a conversation. So within zone 2, I can still talk on the phone, I can still talk to the person next to me on the treadmill, but my heart rate is up and I might be feeling like I'm sweating a little bit. So here's some good examples of doing zone 2 cardio. Incline treadmill is my favorite way to do it. You can just go on a brisk walk where you're walking like at a pretty good rate. Light jogging, cycling, hiking, or even rowing at a steady pace is a really good way to do zone 2 cardio. Now here's a bonus way to get extra cardio in. So first I focus on my steps. Second, I focus on zone 2. Third is I focus on sprint training. This is the best of both worlds to still get the benefits of HIIT cardio without getting the cortisol spikes or the craving spikes. Sprint training works for fat loss and muscle building because it's gonna help you burn higher amount of calories in a short amount of time. So you're someone who's like, man, I don't have 30 minutes today to go walk on the treadmill on an incline. Or you're like, man, I don't have time to just go do 10,000 steps, but I would definitely be down to go sprint. This right here is gonna be a game changer for you. Another cool thing with sprint training is it increases what's called EPOC, post-exercise calories burned. So because you're doing sprint training, after you work out, your body's still gonna burn calories because you put your heart rate at a high rate, which is awesome. A cool thing with sprint training too that HIIT training does not do is it actually preserves muscle mass while cutting fat. So instead of doing HIIT cardio sessions where you're doing HIIT for like 60 minutes or a HIIT exercise class, you do sprint training, which is let's say 10 to 20 minutes max. And because I'm doing sprint training, I'm able to preserve muscle mass while cutting the fat. And a cool thing about sprint training too is it actually improves insulin sensitivity and your hormone profile, boosts growth hormone, testosterone, and adrenaline. Now, how many times should you do sprint training? I would not recommend doing sprint training more than, I would say, max 3 times per week. Preferably 1 to 2 is going to be the sweet spot. Now, this comes down to if you are a beginner, if you're intermediate, or if you're advanced. So if you're a beginner right now, I would recommend doing sprint training no longer than 1 time per week. So focus on form, focus on recovery, and focus on your joint health. Use low impact modalities. So sprint training doesn't always have to be you're actually running and sprinting on a track, or you're running and sprinting on a street. You could sprint on a bike. You could do sled pushes. You could do sprints on the elliptical. You could do sprints on the Stairmaster. Those are all forms of sprinting where I'm getting my heart rate up to about 80 to 90% of my max heart rate. Next, if you're on the intermediate level, you could do sprint training 1 to 2 times per week. So combine strength training, ideally on separate days or post lift, with your sprint training. The key with sprint training and pretty much all forms of cardio besides walking is you don't want to do your cardio before you lift weights. You either want to do the cardio after you lift weights or just on a separate day on your rest days. If you're someone who's more advanced, maybe you have a running background or you really want to kick it up a notch, this is when you can really experiment and play with doing cardio, sprint training 2 to 3 times per week, only if recovery is optimized. Here's how I personally like to set up sprint session structure. So first you want to warm up a little bit, obviously. You don't just go straight into it. Then I'll do sprint blocks. So 6 to 10 sprints of 10 to 30 seconds with about 1 to 4 or 1 to 6 work to rest ratios. What this means is, let's say you do a 30-second sprint block. So you'll sprint for 30 seconds and then you'll walk on the treadmill for anywhere from a minute and a half to 2 minutes, and you repeat. So all out sprint 30 seconds and then 90 to 120 seconds of slow walking. And then after you're done, after you do your 6 to 10 sprint blocks, you'll do some type of cool down, which is either walking or some type of static stretching at the end. Again, this doesn't always have to be sprinting or running on a treadmill. You could do this on a bike, you could do this on the Stairmaster, you could do this on the elliptical, you could even do sled pushes. Here are some big key considerations. Recovery is critical here. So if you implement sprint training and you're noticing your lifts are diminishing or you can't recover as properly, then maybe you need to dial back on the sprint training. Sprints are intense, so they have high demands on your CNS. And so too much can actually lead to burnout or possibly injury, which you don't want to have happen. You want to avoid doing your sprint training on days before heavy lower body training. So if you're going to squat tomorrow, don't go and do long sprints today. For weight loss, I want you to pair strength training 3 to 4 times a week and zone 2 cardio with your sprint sessions. Now, the key is prioritizing, number 1, my calorie deficit. I can't out cardio a bad diet. So I prioritize my calorie deficit, number 1, and then I prioritize lifting weights, number 2. So if you're in a jam, you're like, I don't have time today, I want you to prioritize your lifting session over the cardio session. Don't be the person who only goes to the gym and only steps on the elliptical or the treadmill. No, go into the gym, prioritize your lifting sessions, then worry about your cardio next. So I lift weights 3 to 5 times per week, and when I'm lifting weights, I focus on compound lifts and I take my sets close to failure. I believe cardio is overrated for fat loss, but it's actually underrated for your heart health. The primary reason you should be doing cardio isn't to lose more weight. The primary reason you should be doing cardio is to improve your cardiovascular system. It's in the name. So I do it primarily because of how it makes me internally. Also, what I love is I love the mental benefits of doing cardio. I feel good, I'm clear, I'm able to make better decisions, I'm in a better mood when I do cardio. The secondary effects of cardio is the fat burning and calorie burning process. And when I understand that, I'm going to put more emphasis and attention on my nutrition and secondarily emphasis on my cardio itself. When I go to the gym, I prioritize lifting weights over doing cardio because I know that my body has a positive adaptation process to lifting weights where I burn more calories over time the stronger that I get, and it actually has a negative adaptation process to cardio, which means the more cardio I do, the less calories that I end up burning. Now, this does not mean you don't do cardio, you neglect cardio, but it means you understand where cardio goes in the list and the priorities when it comes to fat loss. So I hope you got some value from this video. If you want to learn more about what it would look like to work closely one-on-one with me, then just fill out the application in the description below and I'll reach out directly to you to see how I could best help. And if my content has been valuable to you at all, then make sure you like and you subscribe for future videos because I'm gonna be dropping a lot more for you very soon.